just a chicanery. They're just used to kind of skewing things and not using facts. So they just say random shit and you're just supposed to accept it.
Yep, exactly. And that's part of what they expect from black people in these leftist spaces. They don't want people who are going to think critically. They don't want people who are going to think beyond this handful of policies that the left wants at any cost. Right. And it's to the point where these folks are aggressively harming us. All right.
Yep.
And they don't realize it or they don't care.
They realize it. No,
I'm leaning towards the latter. You know, even some of them, I remember talking to the folks when I first started moving towards reparations, their thing was, let's get these basic policies done. And then we'll start talking about reparations once we start the healing. Yeah, in some ways that is logical. But if you're not going to discuss it now and say, okay, let's get to reparations later within the discussion, that means you're going to ignore me later. So fuck you. We're going to go first and then you go. Otherwise, your shit falls apart. End of story.
Practically, sorry to use that word again. When you start a conversation with someone, you start somewhere. Right. You start somewhere. So I'm thinking of this fellow whose name escapes me, but he was famous for having converted a number of Ku Klux Klan members to not being Klan members anymore. And he had like 17 of these outfits in his
door, you motherfucker.
Welcome back. I'm with the legend, Daryl Davis. Daryl, thank you again for coming on. Daryl, I wanted to start this segment off with a clip from Morgan Freeman that I thought was really just an interesting perspective on the idea of Black History Month. This was an interview Morgan did years ago, and I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Black History Month you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay. Which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh. Why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
I thought there was a really interesting concept about not having Black History Month. I feel like if I went out to the world and said, let's get rid of Black History Month, I would be called a bigot and a racist. But Morgan Freeman brings up an interesting point of that Black history is American history. What is your take on that?
Well, my take on that is this. I've been saying that very same thing longer than Morgan Freeman. I've been saying it now for 22 years.
Backlash directed at Texas Republicans today. This is just one example. Former San Antonio Mayor Julian Castro says the governor is trying to erase MLK, Cesar Chavez, and Susan B. Anthony from the Texas curriculum and recast the KKK as the good guys. It's all part of a debate about what your kids should have to learn at school.
Eyewitness News reporter Matt Houston breaks it down.
Texas Republicans wanted to be sure teachers aren't telling your kids that white people are inherently racist. So this last session, they made a list of concepts public schoolers should and should not learn.
To get that bill through the House, the Republican authors allowed Democrats to tack on a whole host of other issues that the Democrats wanted to talk about.
It was a compromise, a limit on controversial discussion, mostly about race, in exchange for mandatory lessons about things like slavery and a woman's right to vote. But when the special session began, Republicans decided to cut lessons Democrats lobbied for.
It looks like they are effectively banning the teaching of all these subjects.
The new bill would not prevent teachers from talking about things like the KKK. They just wouldn't have to. But they never have before, since the legislature only mandated those lessons this May. Political scientists say it all begs a new question.
Should the legislature be in the business of telling schools what they can and cannot teach? It depends. Candidly, it depends in what the schools are choosing to teach. This is a constant process where we're trying to find the right balance.
If it passes, the bill would still force teachers to find that balance by presenting both sides of political arguments if they come up in class.
Why do we keep talking about white people's hearts and minds? I got 4 white god sisters. My godmother used to watch. My godmother and my godmother and her husband, they used to listen to Rush Limbaugh all the time when I was growing up. We would go places and she called me her daughter. Like, my white sisters still tell people about when I did music videos. They talk about their black sister all the time. But if you talk to them sometimes, you would probably think they're a little racist. But they don't hate black people. They're just kind of poor white trash, and they don't really understand the race thing like that because they're poor white trash. They've been through a bunch of shit them damn selves. So it's just different. I would have to seriously sit down and have real conversations with them about race.
But Sam, I think, I'm sorry, but part of the problem is America and our education system is one of the biggest misinformation campaigns about black people in human history. Right. So knowing that, wouldn't it make her project, Bree Joy's project of these class issues being taken care of, wouldn't it help her project to educate people about what has happened and why people think the way they think? To my mind, it would make it easier for them to come forward. I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, I agree with the education piece, but I don't think we should educate adults. I think adults should educate themselves, right? So
that's fair.
I didn't learn all this Black history shit in school. I went to private school until I was in the 8th grade. And after that, I went into the public school education system. Everything I've learned about Black history on a real level, everything that I've learned about Black history on a real level, I have learned myself. Through choice, through me wanting to learn. That's what adults do. Kids are the ones that should be introduced to information and should be taught. So again, they focus on the policy. That's really what I'm trying to say. And the only policy that Black Americans really want is reparations. After that, do the class shit. Stop trying to tell us class shit is our reparations. It's not. It's 2 separate things. So you need to do both and shut the fuck up.
Outfits in his closet, because every time they left the Klan, they would give it to him, and it was kind of like a notch on his belt, this Black guy. And when interviewed and asked, how do you do it? He says, well, I start by asking them to come and sit down and have a Coke with me. And I ask them if they have kids, and I say, I have kids, and we talk about our kids, and they realize that I love my child and I'm a father and I'm a parent. We have this very basic thing in common. Now, I wouldn't accuse that man of being indifferent to racism, not caring about racism, trying to hide the fact that obviously what's driving him is a desire to decouple these men from their conscription into a virulently racist sect, right? Mm-hmm. But the step one isn't for him, practically, hi, you're a Klan member, you're a racist, stop, I hate you, which everyone would have every justification to say to anybody.
Again, who the fuck is doing this? I talked to many of white people on the Twitter during the elections. And I don't just remember going around to random white people who had said nothing wrong, just saying you're a fucking racist and I hate you, do reparations. I don't remember those being the conversations I was having with white people. Not most of them, but a lot of Bernie supporters was telling me to take my nigga ass back to Africa, or I could have reparations when I took my nigga ass back to Africa, or niggas should go back to Africa and then maybe we'll. It was some iteration of that, but there was a lot of niggas coming from the left, the progressive, the white, liberal, progressive racists. Y'all got a lot of racists in your tent.
But they make room for those folks, right? That's part of the problem here.
It's a big ass clown car on purpose.
Yeah, they are so dogged about making space for those people that they're ruining opportunities to move forward, right? And I mean, and that is what it is. And if they're not ready to tackle this stuff, it's not going to go anywhere. But a handful of folks will get paid, a handful of folks will get good jobs, a handful of folks, will move on with their lives, and we'll still be in the same spot if we allow this to continue. And it is what it is. I'm sorry you went through that, Sam. That didn't happen to me. They kicked me off Twitter, so so they had to deal with me.
You know what's funny? I didn't get kicked off Twitter till I started making nice with the white people. As soon as when all that BLM, we stand with black people shit started, I was like, okay, you stand with black people, but will you stand with black people for reparations? I got away with that shit for like 2 weeks. I got too many white people jumping on board. I had a few companies jump on board. They shut me down. They shut a bitch down like 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's why I got shut down, because a handful of people were listening to me, right? And that makes me a problem.
No, a handful of white people were listening.
A handful of white people on the left were listening to me.
You get black people listening to you all day. When you start getting too many white people listening, they shut you down.
Yeah, I had to go. Yeah, I was a problem. That's all right. I'm still pretty. Damn 'em. John, Mud, what you got? Let's go with John first. Sorry, Mud.
Yeah, man, word. They tried to banish MG. That shit was. They really.
That's all right. We got an eyewitness here. John's an eyewitness.
The anti-black red rose races that Sam and y'all talking, and MG talk, that shit real, man.
I love that, man. Red rose races.
And the word of the red rose races is fucking horrible, man. But me and Sam was talking about this shit, how like we seen that Jimmy Dore video we was like, this is a problem, man. This is a fucking problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like he won't advocate for reparations. So he just bring this Klan man on, talking about we all human beings. So,
I'm a Klan man.
So we should all get together with and all this other stuff. Like he crying, talking about he had to fight for the black kid on the black top because he was black when he was 8 years old. Like, what the fuck is this shit? What this shit got to do with this shit ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Like, we starving out here. We need our bread. Jimmy, what are you talking about? Like,
and he's out there changing one heart and mind at a time.
If Jimmy Dore came to my school, we was elementary school, man, them little black kids would have told Jimmy Dore up. He would have came with that bullshit. But that's another story. That's just some funny shit to say. But like, what does that have to do with anything though? You know what I mean? Like this is the shit. And then she want to bring this shit up like she had to talk to the Klansmen. That's a waste of time to me. We got to put political pressure to get political solutions for our problems. Like, fuck convincing the Klansmen. I'm not. Come on, man. What the left doing, man? Look, just being racist as ever. Look, banish MG, call Sam all kinds of. Again, this shit is terrible. They the worst, man.
It's all gravy, but I think John brings up a good point. As far as how the left does this, she's talking about that one guy that occasionally goes to talk to Klan guys about life and da 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 da. We're looking for broad policy. It's funny that she focuses on this one piece, but everything else she talks about is broad policy, right? But he talks about this one guy who talks to Klan people and talks them out of their hood, right? Which is cool.
Symbolic. It's cool, but it's still symbolic, right? I guess it's like
it's not even symbolic. It's anecdotal, maximum.
It is,
you know what I mean? And it doesn't really get us anywhere as a people, as a country, right? Because not everybody's going to respond to that the same way. And this nonsense that she's talking about is one individual doing his one individual thing, and that's his mission in life. Good for him, right? The way he tackles that is not how policy should be tackled at the state and federal level. It's just not, right? That's all I got. I'm sorry. Mud, what you got, man?
No, I totally agree, but I think Eddie Glaude opened the door for this because he made it about changing hearts and minds. So he jumps to this example of this dude running around changing the hearts and minds of Klans members, and she's trying to act like this is what our politics are. When in actuality, if we're going to use the comparison, instead of talking to a white guy about your kids to kind of find common ground, I guess we're going to have this conversation with the government about redlining. We're going to have the conversation with the government about like things that no other group has actually experienced. So it's not going to be like this whole thing, this whole comparison falls apart. It's silly. But this is the problem. Like Eddie Glaude should have made it about, okay, we have systematic racism in this country. It has produced certain outcomes generation after generation. We need policy.
Listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Back on the grill again, we grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to U.S. Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one, cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire, anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country to win. You need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Put them back on the grill again, we grilling them. Back on the grill again, we grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.